Howdy, everybody. Mr. B here, and welcome to the show, and a Merry Christmas to everybody. Hey, we're going to have fun today, and we have a lot to talk about. And let me introduce our guest. As usual, we've got Mr. Jim Goodall, our oldest teenager, Mr. Extraordinaire, Mr. Indiana Jones, the one that tramples through the jungles of Belize and. I don't know how you could do it. Anyway, and to my right is Mr. Boa, Mr. Voice Artist, Golden Tonsils himself. How you going, Rod? Professor.
It's going, that's for sure.
And we got Chastiy with us today. G'day. How are you? Hey, tell me, did I ever put belt to your name?
It begins.
I mean, I had to say this. Yeah, I thought they would. Anyway, hey, welcome to the show, Jess. And hey, Heidi, Popp. And I remember the first time I spoke to Heidi, I keep calling her I felt like I was calling her Poop.
I think Poop once too.
Yeah, I mean, it's the act of teeth. Sometimes I'll take it out. People don't believe it. I got like vampire when I take my teeth out. So it doesn't bother me. When you get my age, it's not about image. It's about just being crazy, living life to the max. And Heidi's our educator. She's the one that molds the young people of our next generations, and which is wonderful. And Chastiy is I would say she's now let me get this right. She's a person that faces life with a positive attitude. She's a goer. She's kind of she turns a negative into a positive. I'm pretty sure she does. Am I right? I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Hear me now?
Oh yes. I thought you saw a woman that doesn't talk. Wow.
Oh, that's not me.
Hey, how can we have 3 gray-haired old men and then 2 gorgeous women?
Oh, here we go.
Because I color my roots.
I got some grays too.
Yeah, I color mine too.
I don't waste my hormones growing hair, okay, girls? Anyway, well, anybody? Well, listen, Jim, you've got some up-to-date news on what's happening in Belize.
The head of Nish gave us the okay, the blessing to start excavating on we call it Pyramid G. We have to wait for the somebody from NISH, which is the National Institute for Culture and Heritage, to go and just take a quick look at the site. I don't know what he's going to see because you can't. The jungle is it's right behind me. I mean, that's the top of Pyramid B, and we hope to find the one we're going to start excavating on probably sometime in February when we get the money. I'll know more on January 8th. But we're going to start. We should be able to start paying the villagers, about 30 of them. We're going to go in and they're going to clear all the overgrowth off the pyramid. Now, this thing is 260 feet tall. And it hasn't been ransacked like other sites because it's so difficult to get to it. And we didn't even, we were aware of it, but we didn't know how to get to it. And it's not close to any of the other 3 pyramids in the complex. But Nish has given us the tentative okay for phase 1. That's taken all the, with the exception of the large trees, we're going to take see all the crap behind me. All that would be taken off. And we're going to, and then phase 2 will be removing the overburden. Now, once we get the overburden off, we're going to sift all that to make sure there's no artifacts and stuff in it, because they're always finding stuff in other locations. And then, the fun part is making sure you have enough money to do the job. And that's the challenge. But we have some stuff that that we're sort of working with, that we may be in a very, very good position. to move forward come February. So I thought we were going to go out there in middle of January when Nish was there, and we decided against it. So I've already been to Belize twice this year. I know a number of people involved that that are going to be involved in it that haven't been there. We would like to get them down there, depending on what they're going to be, how they're going to be contributing to the program. But we hope to people we've talked to in LA in the film industry, all of them are really, really interested in what we're doing. They haven't offered any dinero yet, so we're just yeah.
And so, how many documentaries you been in already, Jim?
Over 100.
Oh my God, hey, busy.
Yeah, most of them were in the 90s. I mean, every once in a while, I'm just zipping through the channels, and also I'll hear my voice. And I looked there, and I had dark hair and no wrinkles and no saggy skin. That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
So that that's the real exciting part. And the other thing is, we want to do a program similar in total to be a little bit like the Curse of Oak Island, except we're going to find something. Oak Island's been digging a hole in near the beach now, for 12, 13 years, maybe longer. And they've really found nothing. They found one gold coin, which everybody said was planted, and two other small little artifacts, which people believe were planted. We're sitting on 4 pyramids that we know are at least 2,000 years old. And now the archaeologists in Belize are saying that, well, what we really think is we're looking at pyramids that are 20,000 to 200,000 years old. And that the Mayans didn't build them. The Mayans found them abandoned and repurposed them. Yeah. So, and what we have on the base of both Pyramid B and Pyramid G, and those are how we can look at the map and know which one we're looking at, is there is a community below those 2 pyramids. Do we lose Robert? You got discussion with us and left?
No, he's probably went to corner, but
no, I hit the wrong button. I'm over here pushing stuff, and I went, what's going on here? That's not the one I wanted.
He's always hitting the wrong button.
He's the technical expert.
Yeah.
So
I'm a geezer geek. What can I say?
A geek.
Yeah, so we have. I mean, everybody that we sort of pitched this thing to in Hollywood have all gotten really, really excited about what we have to offer. And what we have here, this area right here. Well, I'm not very good at this. I'll make a bad weatherman.
It's all right, Jim.
That's like all the same ones that I've seen.
Yeah, that's an open chamber, an open-sided chimney, and it goes down another 10 feet below the overburden. And apparently, what they used that for, they would burn incense in there, and just the way it was designed, the smoke would swirl around the top. And that's where the high priest would be talking to his entities or whatever it is. And then when he's all done, come on over here. We come walking down these steps. Yeah, and it's just, I mean, everything about it is cool because what we're looking at is a job that was finished 2,000 years ago, but at the same time Christ was walking around.
And by the way, Jim, if you don't mind, do you have your book available there?
My new one, yeah.
Yes. Let's give it a plug. Jim's got a new book. I think it's his 29th book.
Now, what I'll probably have to do, I'm going to have to turn off my background. So I
It's
and
all
down
right,
over
Jim.
here.
Do, 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 do.
Okay.
Here we go.
This is my newest book. It came out about a month ago. It's 352 pages, and it's a pictorial history on the nuclear-powered submarines built and under construction for the United States Navy. I cover 227 submarines in here, and a history on each one.
Wow.
Jim was a was it you what were you doing at the Hawaiian Museum?
I was the curator at the
yes.
Pacific Aviation Museum in Pearl Harbor.
That's correct.
I did that for 4 years, and prior to that, I was jack of all trades and restoration manager at the Museum of Flight in Seattle.
Jim is an aeronautical engineer, and he's also worked for the Skunk Works, which is the old Blackbird and all that.
Yeah.
Jim's little baby.
Lockheed's toy store.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to move. Jim, let's move on to somebody else there for a sec. Now, Heidi, what have you been up to? Sorry, Jim.
Right.
Hey, we'll let it be a free for all in a minute. Okay, let's shed some blood first, mate.
She's prettier than me, so it's okay.
Oh, well, let's put it this way. The stage is yours, Heidi. Here we go. Lots for words, girl.
Well, I'm not changing history of Mesoamerica.
Yes, you are. You are. No, you are. You're molding young minds, and you're going to tell them to question everything.
Yes. Absolutely.
Question everything. Yes, right.
So I think that's what I'm doing. I'm just mid-holiday swing. We're hemorrhaging Christmas right now. Like, I made 1 million cookies today. I already went to one event. Like, just having a good time with it. And
Excellent.
yes, we've done the talks of Santa and all that kind of stuff. We just talk tradition, and we talk cultures, and we talk, the magic and the light within. We just had the solstice, so that's a very big Steiner. Well, that's a big day in general. Finding the light within, all the darkness. It's huge.
And you're an experiencer as well, aren't you?
Yes, sir. And I correct myself, right, Mr. Bauer? It's not quite. I guess I can't prove my contact, but I'm experienced.
Nobody can, but you know your own truths, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, well, experience is the term that is kind of put on people who have all these different types of experiences, whether they're sightings or some kind of ethereal interactions, spiritual, some manifestation of something. So I tend to use that. It seems to be pretty accurate for a general sense set of a whole bunch of different experiences. So
right.
Yeah. In fact, I think we're all experiencers, because aren't we all experiencing this right now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
This is kind of otherworldly. We got Jim Goodall on here, and it's like I go into this other place when I listen to Jim, and it's like, well, wait a minute, I have
a bad acid I just had.
Yeah.
but he's chosen not to talk to me for the last 2 months, but that's okay.
Well, you must have pissed him off, mate. Honestly, come on.
Talk about geezer whining. I mean, come on.
Come on, guys. Stop.
Hey, I must shut
Get
in.
yourselves a bloody bed. Chums.
So, Heidi, what did you do on the solstice again? What was that?
Yes. Well, to be honest, this year I didn't go. I actually hung out with a pal, but at our center, they do the Advent spiral. It's a big spiral in the parking lot of a bunch of bough and evergreen and pine cones and shells and sea crystals. And it's very reverent. It's a very reverent evening. They had a celloist and occasionally someone singing, and they gave verses and stories. And one by one, each of the children with their parents, if they wanted to, they would walk with it reverently with a little apple and a candle and a rosemary sprig all the way to the center, and they light their candle. And then they'd walk all the way out reverently and then place it wherever they like. And at the end of the service, everything's aglow. And it was a gorgeous night. The photos are breathtaking. I'll have to share some of those from them there. Last year, I was the angel. So I had my sparkle pants and I helped just the kids, so they don't catch fire on something. And
it's always nice when that doesn't happen.
I know a lot of things have happened, but it's a very graceful, a lot of they go K through 8 with that. There's 8th graders that did it. They've been doing it since kindergarten. And it's really a time where, you're with your family and it's just this finding the light within through all the darkness and community. It's a lot of community stuff. So it's really a beautiful experience. I was just hanging out with my gal pal. We missed it. She never comes up into town. And her son is my son's good buddy. So we missed this year's, but we did our own little special ceremony in its sense, And we're always bringing the light in the darkness.
Now, we're going to bring the lamb to the slaughter here now. And we're going to Chastiy. Isn't that an evil laugh? What do you reckon? What do you reckon, Robert? Professor?
Are you talking about me being the lamb? I thought you were going.
No. You're too ugly to be a lamb, mate. Come on. I hate anybody trying to copy my image.
If my life depended on it, I couldn't grow one. First time I decided I was going to grow a mustache because I always had a baby face. Yeah. And even at 30, I check, they want to check my ID because I don't have that problem today. But it's just, I don't know. Right now, I have so many things going through my brain. This thing on Belize is just occupying literally every neuron in my head is going nuts over it.
Yeah. Anyway, listen, I'm gonna bring up Chastiy. Hey, now tell us all about yourself there, Chastiy. I mean, you're not a crazy thing, eh? I mean, you're not going to kind of give us a hard time and blow us up and all that stuff. Do all these, okay.
Well, maybe. What fun would that be?
Maybe. Yeah.
No. What have I been doing lately? So I've actually been in a pretty interesting and uncomfortable. There's about to be some changes. So, change is always a little uncomfortable, but for the better, things are good. So really, I've been spending a lot of time just kind of going within. But I mean, I take care, I take care of my mom, and I'm also, so while I caretaker for her. And so I'm very honored and blessed to be able to do something like that. Because she's dear to my heart. So it can be challenging, from
all
time
mothers
to time.
are, sweetie. All mothers are,
Yeah. But she's my master teacher, and understanding that is truly helping me out. But in the meantime, I'm getting very comfortable. I'm certified in Reiki, and so I'm getting very comfortable with distance healing, spiritual restructuring. Really kind of stepping into my true potential there. I kind of doubted myself for a little bit, and then I've been really kind of shocking myself lately. So,
where's Waterloo, Wisconsin? It's on your T-shirt, and I just wondering.
Oh, is that what this? I was like, well, this was a gift. Honestly, right? This is actually my pajamas. So I do I apologize for being in a pajama party.
Hey, come prepared, guys.
Yeah, I wear a good T-shirt.
So I thought
you're in.
I know we just turned this into a slumber party. How do you like that?
So I'm actually live in Austin, Texas. I don't even know where this is. This is just a gift that I kind of sleep in from time to time, and I kind of dozed off, not dozed, but I was meditating, and I was like, oh snap. Anyway, so that's what this shirt's about. Yeah,
actually, we'll have to have I've got a lady friend. I think you guys know her, Wanda Wells. Do you know her? Know her at all? She has Wanda Wands, and she's a marvelous lady. She's what they call a Reiki teacher and all that stuff. She's into holistic medicines and stuff. And she actually had, Wanda.
Yovanda with a Y.
That's it. Yovanda. Me too. Sorry. Yeah,
she's
lovely lady. I'm going to have her on the show soon, and her story is fantastic. Her story is really fantastic. Yeah. I mean, she was on death's door. Literally, they actually kind of ready to write her off, and it's only the power of the mind that kept her going. They didn't expect her to walk or live or anything, just very literally paralyzed.
That's powerful. I love stories like that. I've read Joe Dispenza's books, like both of them twice. Are they're just unbelievable. These testimonies. It's wild. That's very cool.
Well, Robert, Professor Bauer, he's very much into this kind of what you call power of the mind. Very much so.
Absolutely.
And he's actually, you two could really have a really interesting conversation. I mean, really good on this. But I find I've been. Are you into fitness as well? I see.
Oh, are you talking to me?
Yeah.
I apologize. Having a hard time seeing. So I'm trying to.
You should lay off the green shit. You know what I mean?
This has been happening to me lately, and I think what it is like just kind of shifting frequencies is what I kind of feel like. Because it's a struggle. So I apologize, but yes, fitness. Absolutely.
Don't apologize, but we're always Jim always does it. You're talking to me.
Hey, that you're approaching elderly abuse.
So, Chastiy, what do you do? You obviously you're taking care of your mom, but what do you do? What's your profession, your skill, your focus? What do you do?
So I was actually working in the medical field for quite some time, and so I had a big shift. But yes, I was working in the medical field, working at the urgent care during COVID and all of that. And that was just, it dawned on me pretty quickly that we were hindering more than we were helping. So I had a big shift there. So I started kind of working for a chiropractor and then just kind of taking some time off from all that to kind of help with my mom. But I'm getting into like addiction counseling. I would like to kind of help people transmute all of that. And I myself have pulled myself out of that. So I would like to help others do the same.
Where you from originally?
Houston, Texas.
Oh, okay. Oh,
so you're a Texas.
His favorite airport. His favorite airport.
I like Houston, but you can take Houston Intercontinental and shove it into Mexico. It is the worst experience.
Yes.
And do you know what? I tell you something about, and the strange thing about the COVID-19, what happened during that period of time is that heart attacks dropped, statistics dropped by about 50%, strokes dropped by about 35%. Cancer dropped by something like nearly 45%, and they're putting it all onto COVID-19. It's like suddenly people weren't dying of cancer, heart attacks, and strokes like they were normally, so they actually shifted the numbers around to suit the agenda.
100%. There were even a couple of actual doctors or, physicians that aren't quite. It doesn't matter. Either way, they are able to prescribe medication. And HR sent an email to everybody and told them that they could not prescribe hydrochloroquine. And so
the two proven cures for a COVID, which is the flu or a common cold, that type of virus.
A common cure for a whole bunch of problems for over 50 years.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got a track record that none of these yo-yos that are running stuff now are calling shots or putting formulas and with machines and models and coming up with some bullshit about, this is what we think the virus is and this is how we're going to concoct and go against our own agreed upon negative rights, which is testing. They have to test. If this whole thing with the legislation that they got passed for immunity against legal action is all based on
that's going to be thrown out,
that they have to prove that they didn't do anything fraudulent. And boy, did they fraudulence the hell out of this. The numbers weren't numbering, and now we have this data on the back end of this going, looks like you guys screwed up pretty bad. So if you want any further trust, you've got to regain that. Your credibility is now in the toilet. So any of you who have, these 3-letter acronyms tattooed on the ass end of your name saying that you are the officialdom authority of whatever this particular politic, this medicine, this pharmaceutical, this health, You're all guilty until proven. You got to reprove yourselves. You screwed up big time. So there's
Crimes against
that
humanity.
I personally, and I don't think anybody else for that matter, should listen to and believe out of this crew of clowns.
100%.
Well, one thing I actually, big picture I saw it then out of all this was, okay, I understand about, washing your hands and things like that, but we're now, because of the pandemic, now we're sanitizing ourselves to the point of extinction because we need to pick up bacteria to strengthen our immune systems. And this is the problem.
And it's the helicopter parents, the helicopter mom whose kid is 6 years old, has never touched dirt.
Yeah.
Everything is sanitized. And that kid is going to become Typhoid Mary or whatever. I mean, he's going to be susceptible to everything.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
So, Chastiy, you said that you when you went through this breaking point or separation, that you were working in the hospital in the emergency services, right?
I was working in urgent care, yes.
Urgent care.
Mm-hmm.
And you said that you saw early on that you guys were not helping. Well, what did you see?
Well, I mean, I've just kind of known that in the medical field, like just going through my own stuff. But we were just, that in general, they weren't allowing our practitioners to prescribe hydrochloroquine when I know damn well I already knew all this, right? I already knew that the hydrochloroquine was helping. They weren't letting the physicians prescribe that. It was just very obvious that this was a money-making machine. And, what we were charging when you could go get a free COVID test was unbelievable. It was like $280, and I mean, the tests, they were just the whole thing was off. And then they want to start mandating vaccines. I was going to have to lose my job if I did vaccine. I'm not vaccinating myself and putting this stuff in myself permanently for something to work somewhere that I'm not going to work the rest of my life. So no, thank you. But I don't know if that answered your question. I mean, I just saw lots of stuff. I mean, people who were coming in were fully boosted. I mean, literally had like 3 that were testing positive for COVID. I mean, it was just so backwards, and just it was ugly.
So what about the things that we heard where there was deliberate and intentional mislabeling of the diagnosis? Did you see that?
I didn't see that. No. I didn't.
So
UCLA is guilty of that for sure.
Medical examiners,
trouble.
Medical examiners and coroners started saying that this is garbage. The person didn't die of COVID. He had a gunshot wound to the head.
That's right.
That type of stuff. And what COVID did to the media, to the pharmaceutical and the medical institutions, it shoved them down the toilet. It's gonna. I don't know if probably the pharmaceuticals won't come back in my lifetime. I mean, I'm an old guy, but I know I'm gonna live over another 20 years. And I don't think the pharmaceuticals are ever going to come back, and they may be out of business when all the lawsuits worldwide start coming in. I mean, and you had a brave soul there in the UK, or maybe it was New Zealand. No, I didn't say UK. I should have said Australia. I'm not sure if it was Australia or New Zealand. Went public. He was an analytical guy, and he started looking at the numbers. And in one particular batch, I think this was from Pfizer, one particular batch of 720 injections. There were 23 fatalities.
Wow. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. And had there been 3 or 4 for anything else, it would have been immediately removed from the market. And I think you're probably talking about Dr. John Campbell over in England. If you haven't seen his YouTube channel, he does some of the best analytical and statistical work that's out there. So highly recommend Dr. John Campbell. He great reports, and I mean he was a nurse practitioner, I believe, and he's an old geezer like us. So he's one of those guys that's got, he's got a well-traveled and worn bullshit meter, and he looks at things statistically and from a scientific perspective, and applies math and models to the results. And that's part of the problem that we have. I agree with you, Jim. I think the entire pharmaceutical industry, the way that it's constructed right now, and the inhabitants of that infrastructure are going to be all replaced probably within the next 10, 15 years at the most. There's obviously, it's just like all the different sciences. There's good stuff that comes out of technology, and there's bad stuff. There's good stuff in the health and medicine field, but there's a lot more bad stuff. In fact, I'll just throw this little turd on the table and toss it around. I think one of the reasons, and this kind of falls into one of the many still in the process of being proven conspiracies, I think the pharmaceutical industry has been purposely, not only intently with really nasty intentions, creating substances and chemicals that are injected not only into our bodies and not just orally, whatever, just talking about the medicines. There's some kind of medicine for shit I didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
And then the way they craft those commercials, they'll give you a series of symptoms.
Yeah.
Happy Fun. It's Happy Fun Ball. Happy Fun Ball. Remember that?
One of them. And you say, well, I kind of think maybe I had that other one too.
Right.
You start getting in your mind that I got to get me some of that because I've got some of what they just said.
Right.
So they do that on purpose, and they've done it to they started with our food, and the food has created, and this is my theory and opinion, the injection of this crap into our food system has created a majority of the illnesses, obesity, diabetes, all these other things that happen to our bodies. Yeah. And then in order to combat that, they turn around and give you the cure, or at least the treatment. Because you ever notice
they don't want a cure.
There's no cure in anything because there's no money in a cure.
No.
Yeah.
I can only look back in time, and I remember as a child or as a teenager,
that's a long time ago.
A 17-year-old girl looked like a 17-year-old girl. She had no boobs, small backside. They were very petite. Now they put so much hormone in foods.
Yeah.
Now you've got girls at bloody 12 with size D cups. You know what I mean?
And that are 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
I mean, one of my favorite things to do when I go back to Minnesota, if my kids are working and my grandsons are working, I go to the Mall of America. There's a nice little coffee place right outside of Nordstrom's, and I people watch, and I'm absolutely blown away by the 6 foot, 6'2", 6'5", 13-year-old and 12-year-old girls.
Yeah.
With boobs and bodies of women, not girls.
Yeah.
And it's all the growth hormones in your milk and poultry and stuff like that. I mean, it's just
So Chastiy, does that make any sense to you? That little babble that I just said?
100%, because I will tell you 100%, because 10 years prior to that, when I first got into the medical field at 2012, I was working for an ENT specialist. So we were doing, I had no idea. I really thought I was helping. We were doing allergy injections. All of this. And I remember we were scheduling surgeries every single day, balloon sinuplasties, people with sinuses. And at the time I remember thinking God, did this many people really need these men? I remember, but it still wasn't time for me to kind of wake up. I was questioning. And another thing that sticks out is this. I remember this one little girl that came in, never been vaccinated in her life. And looking back in that moment, the way that everybody looked at her, this is 2012, right? The way that everybody, she was just so foreign, she was just so scary just because she wasn't vaccinated, when really, I'm looking at that and I'm like, come on.
That's the only true pure blood.
That's exactly it. I went down a rabbit hole because I myself had cancer and went through chemo, and I didn't know what I know now. And the stuff that I was taking, methotrexate, is actually a derivative of mustard gas. And going going down that whole rabbit hole was really uncomfortable for me because I had already done it. I had already lost the hair. I'd already gone through the whole process. And looking back, I'm like, man, I bet you I know I would have been fine without it. And it was funny because in the time I remember, no, not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. But, family was like, and myself, you're being selfish by not doing it. And I understand now I had to kind of go through that, right, to understand these things. So.
Well, Heidi, I think some of what you're seeing in some of, I would think in some of the students and the children that are coming through, that you probably seen some of these kinds of effects in their behavior. Is that true?
Oh, completely. Absolutely. You can tell, has a lot to do with whose lights are on in a way. But honestly, this started the late 90s when Big Pharma started getting involved in school. That's when I was teaching in Chicago. That was the first horror stories I saw. You just saw what happened to a child. And it was really over the effects of just appeasing the parents. He was being a child, but they were going through a messy divorce. It made me step away from education. But when I had kids, my daughter is a victim. I thought I was doing the right thing and spacing them out. And, I'm so granola. I'm doing the Dr. Sears program. And I spaced everything out. She still had it. I waited till she was almost 5 months for her first one. And she had a seizure. No one helped me. No one would help me. It happened later at home. They told me to come in the next day and they'll do it over because it sounded like it didn't take. And I'm like, wow, all the alarms went off and I was already kind of reading things about it. It's interesting, my Facebook memory bumps, because the whole journey is on there.
Wow. Oh, wow.
And then I just told myself that's when the first segregating time of speaking your truth in these communities happened, because I had to find the others, which were the other parents and moms that they watched something happen to their children, but no one of a power would help them. So we self-taught and self-educated, and we were the frontline warriors. So when 2020 came, we're like, we were made for this. Come on, everybody, we got you. And I had lemonade stands. I was like telling everybody what to do, how to do it.
She's a capitalist.
I love it.
I was going to tell you too, was talking about crimes against humanity. I had a dear pal of mine who worked at labor and delivery at UCLA, and she was disclosing something. She walked away, but they not only the same thing, refusal of any hydro. We've already said it, so who knows how long this will stay up. But any of those things, nothing was prescribed. Every single woman giving birth had COVID. They were giving ventilators, which killed my father-in-law. They were doing everything opposite. And they also said, she goes, Heidi, the worst part is not this pandemic thing. She said, for years before that, even, we are UCLA. We get more money than anything. Like they have athletic teams backing them up. Money pours into this place. They have not been staffed normally for a couple decades. Like, they are never correctly staffed. So they were exhausted by the time this whole thing started. And then she was watching the underbelly of what was going on. And she's like, this whole system's going to collapse. And that was one of my first videos. When I was vlogging that got taken down. Long story longer. You're talking about the kids
Nice.
at school. I'm fortunate enough to be at a more of a sovereign facility where a lot of, we welcome anyone and everyone. Whatever you decide to do, you decide to do. But just that thought alone scares most people away. So we really get the sovereign people who stand up and advocate for their kids, because some just call us, the woo-woo conservatives or something. And it's like, no, we're just like looking for the bright lights out there. So I unfortunately can see children out there. And the fact that they normalized what is happening to children, and they're going like this to the parents, like, don't look at the medication. It's everything but, the medication and the processed foods. Just seeing what the norm, like 1 in 4 kids now, like that kind of stats. It's crimes against humanity.
Yeah, it is. We're getting brought up the cerebral path,
I'm older than all you guys to remember what it was like in the late 40s, early 50s. Nobody had autism. nobody had and how you call it's not allergies, but you can't breathe.
Asthma.
Asthma, yeah.
Yeah.
Weed will do that to you. I self-medicate. I had brain surgery. This is for Chastiy. I had brain surgery the day Challenger blew up, and I was under for 11 hours. I wasn't supposed to make it, but the net result, I live with a headache. Scale of 1 to 10, I always have a 4 headache. It doesn't affect me until at night when I'm trying to relax. During the day, it's like white noise. You don't hear it. So I'm a 78-year-old pothead, and but I don't drink because alcohol makes it worse, and can't see either.
Listen, yeah, absolutely. That's the one thing my mom deals with, chronic pain, and the same thing helps her. So
that's the one thing I do with parenting.
Than any other anti-inflammatory.
That's right.
10 times.
I discovered, and I am the third oldest here because I think usually when I'm on a show, I'm the oldest guy. I get the geezer, but these two yahoos are, I think B's like 7 years ahead of me and Jim's 12. So I have to defer to their tenure. However, I am a geezer, so I get to go in there and play that tune. But
I'm a very immature 73-year-old. A very immature 73-year-old.
You get the mind of a
My
12-year-old.
wife keeps telling me to grow up, and she keeps telling me, "Don't joke all the time." I can't be serious. I'm
the same way. I'm the same way.
Well, I got to that point about cannabis. I discovered cannabis back when I was 12 and been smoking since I was 13. I became a connoisseur and then a snob.
A real pothead.
I had an office in Amsterdam for 7 years during the 90s.
Oh, shit.
Yes. I've been there. Yeah.
I mean, I got thoroughly indoctrinated and have a consummate believer of the cannabis plant for 5 decades. But then that brings up another thing about what we're talking about with this. The reason the pharmaceutical industry exists is primarily to reinforce itself, because it builds in, and it's the biochemicals and the Monster Santos and all these other companies that are involved in the agriculture. What do? They take their science and they use chemicals and they introduce these modified epigenetic and modified gene structure GMO foods into the system so that they can increase the efficiency, productivity, volume, and all of that, and of course profits. But any long-term study about the effects of those modifications has been the human population have been the rats.
Yes.
We have been their experiment.
Yes.
And until people realize that things like Ayurvedic medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, when I became a shiatsu practitioner in the mid 80s, I had to learn TCM, and I had this whole other world of herbology and naturopathy, and I mean all these different modalities that look at the body and the biological and the physiological in total system completely differently. They look at it from the cause, not from the symptom. Mm-hmm. The allopathic model that it permeates all of our societies for the most part, particularly in the Western ones, that allopathic model, all it does is try to treat the symptom, not the cause. And that's the way not only that they've engineered the system, but that's the way they're teaching the people that are going into the profession to be the DLA tattooed ass name experts to go administer the said knowledge. It's a shitty loop of stupidity. And the real stupid part is that we've bought it.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Yep.
I keep referencing that Saturday Night Live Happy Fun Ball, but it's so true. I remember watching that back, was it 90s or whenever it was, when it was this little Happy Fun Ball, and they're just playing with this ball, but it's like may cause dizziness, like all the things. You watch commercials, that's what it is now. Like they're playing in the park. may cause rectal bleeding and bleeding out of your eyeballs and all these things. And you're just like, and they're so happy.
Yeah.
It works.
You can't even call, like, I've had to call ARA for my son. And while I'm holding, I'm hearing, are you suffering from da da da? And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? Like, I can't even make a phone call, and you're putting stuff. I mean, I literally wanted to hang up because I'm like, you're putting all this stuff in my subconscious mind, because the longer that I was holding on, the more times it was repeating. So, I mean, I just hung up because I don't want to hear all that.
Well, I thought, about a year ago, when, especially as soon as COVID came out, back I was doing, in fact, we were supposed to be talking about the moon tonight, and I've got a bunch of stuff that I lined up to show you guys, but we'll get to that if everybody wants to.
Did you say you wanted me to moon you?
Yeah, I was going to say, I know there's some jokes. First moon wins. But the whole idea of the way in which we think about things is changing. When the COVID crap happened, I was doing my podcast, The Nexus, which I'm just getting ready to relight and kick off. And the last show I did was called The Knowledge Apocalypse, The End of the Curated Narrative. And the whole premise behind that is that everything that we've been told, in pick the knowledge domain, doesn't matter. Anything, and in fact, not just the knowledge domains in academia, but academia in general, media, governance, finance, healthcare, medicine, all of it is so wrong.
Yeah.
All of it is broke. And
look at Harvard.
And that breakage is causing it's breaking because it's just wrong. So it's imploding on its own bullshit.
It's time.
But yeah, and it's way time. But what's happening on the other side is we're seeing, and I use the word apocalypse in the title for the real meaning of the word, which is to unveil or to reveal. People use apocalypse as some catastrophic term. That's not the original term. So to me, it's the knowledge reveal or unveil of the fact that all of the shit that we've been told and grown up with, at least over the last 70 plus years, is wrong. And it's wrong nefariously and with malintent. That in and of itself, and this applies to the UFOs and the disclosure movement, which is a whole nother rabbit hole. But the whole concept is that the real information has been kept from the peeps.
That's right.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing is a pressurized, pissed off peeps about the Popp big time.
Oh yeah.
And
that's the awake. Yeah.
And that to me is such a wonderful thing.
It's beautiful.
As one who has been filled all of the outlier black sheep of the family, the one that nobody thought would live till 40, let alone 50 or more. And I've been going after this stuff for decades.
Wow, I can't imagine.
Now I'm at the point where I'm starting to get a call now and then. Hey, what was that thing that you were talking about on that thing that everybody's kind of not sure about? What did you say about that? Right. It's like, well, I said this, and this. He said, well, that's what's happening. What's going on? Do you have inside information? It's like, no, it's trend analysis based on observational neutrality of the available information on whatever the subject is. It's that simple. And the problem is that there's been, and this has been not only through the media and all of the carefully crafted and curated narrative that has been intentionally made for the herd, but it's also through the academic system. When I grew up, we were taught how to think, because if you didn't know how to think, you would either get the wooden spoon, the belt, or you would be hauled off to jail, or whatever. There were much more clear and defined delineation of what's acceptable in society and what isn't. Well, now they've just blurred lines, come up with definitions, new words. They've changed the definitions of the old words, and they've made it this confusing, chaotic cacophony of crap in the conversation. And that is causing this frustrated consciousness that everybody's dealing with. It's like you're getting this tsunami of bullshit, and you're trying to sort through it going, wait a minute, is that one? No, that one. No, what? They come up with what? Who did? No, they didn't do that. I need to see that. I saw that. Wait a minute. What I saw is what I saw. I mean, there's this constant rotation of the nuggets in the noggin getting bounced around because we're allowing it to happen. So now the people have finally gotten to the point where even those who are not awake, those who have the tiniest glimmer within their essence, the common sense meter is been activated, and you don't have to have any enlightenment to see something that's bullshit.
That's
Bullshit meters have gotten to the point to where
Bing, 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 bing.
they've been fine-tuned by the continuous crap that we're getting. It's like you have to filter it. You've got to figure out, how do you manage and mitigate the stream of information.
That's right.
And once you do that, and again, use an objective neutrality of looking at all available information. When I was going through my spiritual journey, trying to find, and it's not just in my spiritual quest, I go through life trying to find things that I resonate with. That's it. If I have a resonance with it, then it's something that I can spend more time. And if it's a real strong resonance, my curiosity gets lit up and leaps into the overly fertilized field of imagination, and I go have a lot of fun. I go see what's going on in there. But that's because I was taught at an early age, you need to go figure this out for yourself. You need to go learn how to figure things out. Shop class and in elementary and junior high school with home economics, learning how to not only cook, but do that checkbook thing. Checkbook? What are you talking about, checkbook?
Right.
Right. And
Right.
it's really about balancing your assets and understanding, plus assets and negative assets. But all of that is missing. That long rant there, and I appreciate your indulgence. That long rant is to say what's going on now is none of that. It's a big pot of constantly new ingredients being stirred in, turning the flame all the way to high. There's no little wiggle pressure thing on the top of the pot. I mean, somebody's clamped down on it. And that's because people are finally had enough. They've been through enough, and particularly in the last 4 years, they've concentrated the hell out of all of the conflict and the chaos and created this big boiling pot. And it's about to happen. The stuff that's happened just in the last month, let alone the last 4 years, I'm sitting there going, you guys are getting pretty desperate, aren't you?
Yeah.
I mean, you are flinging stuff at the walls, and you haven't even looked at what you picked up to fling, let alone where you were aiming it. I mean, it is a incompetence and a complete lack of any ability to actually be competent. Optimization and being optimal in what they're doing, that's not even a word they know about or use. It's all just, wait a minute, turn all the burners on, turn the oven on, turn the thing on full, put all the lights on.
Sounds about right.
It's like cornered animals. I mean, so I think that where I was trying to end up was the whole medicine and medical view of the way that health, the way our biology, the way our system functions is about to go through a complete re-review and examination and a reset. And people are going to find out that meditation is real, that you can change your DNA.
Was that with a D or a T?
Yeah. You can change your biology with the thoughts in your mind. You can change your DNA. You can change and heal. The Reiki, the distance healing. I've been a Tai Chi instructor, but when I did Shiatsu, I got into Qigong and started practicing the entire energy fields. I produced some CDs for a holistic doctor back in the 2000s. And one of them was on what's known as Wei Qi, which are the energy fields from the TCM perspective that emanate from the body. Goes along the lines of the meridian theory. And we have multiple fields that we emanate. People aren't aware of that, but if they think about it and they're trained and they're told about it, they start to become much more effective in the way that they navigate the reality that they inhabit. It's all about frequencies. It's all about knowing that they're there and being consciously aware of the fact that you are not only in them and because of them, but you can control and influence them. You can use them to your benefit. You can change your reality in ways that will completely transform the experience you're having in reality.
I mean,
excuse me for a sec, Jim. I want to ask you a question. Do you think Robert will ever change when it comes to talking?
Fuck no.
I'm just putting the turd on the table, as Robert would say, just throwing it out there. I mean, he wasn't going to take long, but he's doing quite well, actually.
But that's why.
Thank you, Robert. You know we love you, mate. You know.
Yeah.
You know
that's why when Robert and I speak, when he's available on the phone, when we talk. First time we talked was 3 hours, and finally battery started beeping, and we really can't have anything less than a 2-hour conversation. With nothing outlining what we're going to talk about, just start talking, and it's fun. I enjoy it, and the energy feels that you're talking about. I could feel it on on this program. First time I met Robert was here.
The funny thing is, a first time I had Robert, the professor, he likes to be called, the prof.
That's what they call me.
And a Jim on. We got to about an hour and a half, and I said, okay, guys. And I looked at my watch and said, I think we're time to wrap it up now. And no joke, everybody that was there looked at me and says, what? No, keep going. 3.5. Instead from an hour and a half, it went to 3.5 hours. I just couldn't get rid. They just said, I think they gave up in the end because their throats were getting sore. But I'm going to change the subject. I'm going to give you all just a few minutes break, because I'm going to show a trailer from Endgames. I mean. Why I'm doing this, because we're going to lead into let Robert do a presentation on the moon. Is it real? That's what we're going to ask. Is the moon real? Is it a satellite that's gathered dust? I mean, they say it's about 12,000 years old. I don't know how they can do that, unless they know something we don't know. But anyway, I'm just going to put on a trailer when I find it, and here we go, and we're all going to disappear. We can all have a look at this trailer until it's done, and pick your nose, do whatever you want to do until then. Okay, here we go.
It's a mind-blowing situation. For the public, it's like, a conspiracy theory, it's entertaining. But if you're actually in a responsible position and you find out that there's a whole secret government program that you don't know about, it's a shock.
This report comes from a shadowy Pentagon department that was shut down in 2012.
The disclosure movement has been hijacked by people parroting the narrative and the script being written by these black projects. I would say 90+% of everything that's going to come out is false.
The most widely seen UFO right now is not alien, it's actually ours.
It's a great cover story for all kinds of criminal activities. Blame it on the aliens, right?
If we are being visited by interdimensional beings, we should know about it.
This has the big disadvantage of the truth being much more unbelievable than the fiction.
It's the crash retrievals that are the Rosetta Stone for solving the UFO cover-up.
The implications of this is the difference between extinction level civilization versus one that's going to take off to the stars.
And I've got to add somebody else to the. Yeah,
Oh, there I am. Oh,
somebody pressed the wrong button, didn't they?
yeah.
Hey, you're not the only one that's done that. I do that all the time. I really do. Hey, I remember not so long ago, we started the show and we're about 20 minutes into it, and then I forgot I didn't press the start streaming.
I did that once. I did a whole episode. It was an hour and a half. I was like, wait, I forgot to record.
Hey,
Sorry, go ahead.
But I'm getting it down to pat. Anyway, I'm going to show one more. I'm going to show one. Now, on this particular trailer, Mr. John Yost, it's called Alien Abduction Answers. Within this trailer, you'll see a glowing beam. This glowing beam is the exact character or being that visited me from the age of 7 till I was 13. Oh. It's exactly. Now, how I came across this.
Is that BC or AD?
Anyway, John Yost asked me, he says, have you seen my documentary? And I said, no, I haven't. And I said, what do you do? And he said, I'm a filmmaker. And I said, okay. And there's a bit of story behind it. And anyway, he turned around and he says, it's about my abduction. And I said, yeah, I've been. He said, yeah, what was yours about? And I told him briefly. And I told him about this glowing being that walked into the room and looked over my brother. And you know, when it turned towards me, I screamed because I thought it was a ghost. And he said, oh, you've got to watch my documentary. He says, you can watch it on Amazon Prime. Well, apparently it was only on the American networks, not in Australia at the time. The following day, he said to me, did you watch it? And I said, no, I couldn't get hold of it. He says, I'll tell you what I do. He says, I'll give you my vault number. The password's only good for 24 hours. And he says, yeah, you can watch the old documentary. I watched it. And as soon as I saw that character, every hair on my back and on my neck, it's like just stood up. And I went, oh, damn, you know, and it scared, and it made me, I knew it wasn't my imagination. You know, I mean, I know what I saw, you know, and it's like, hey, he's just kind of acknowledged something, you know. I know somebody that's actually experienced exactly the same thing, and he knew that I was dying. When he spoke to me next to me, he said, "Well, did you watch it?" And the words that came out of my mouth to him, I said, "You're a wanker. You knew, didn't you?" Yes, brother, and that's exactly what he said. Yes. Straight away, he said, I knew you would pick that up. I knew you would. Yeah. So it's just a coincidence. So when I, where is it? Here we go. Well, I'll play it now.
This is not communication. It's communion. Hundreds of thousands of people have claimed contact. That will change you. It changed me.
Lost in between two worlds and two dreams.
This was something that I kept buried for years. Strange things would happen. I didn't want anything to do with it anymore.
He came at me, and I fought for my life.
Ships started to pop up in the sky.
And there's this bizarre disk of light. And it was moving across the sky very fast.
The experience is often very terrifying.
If I felt fear, I would crawl under my covers, hoping that it would go away, whatever it was.
I know that we were put in that craft. I knew I was going to go to another planet.
And the being was right next to my face.
He saw two shadow beings. That's when I felt like I was going to die.
I had a real encounter with something, even if I had to live with the fear, is to know the truth, is to know.
Well, how about that? And where did Robert? He's run off going away. He's going to have a token. Here he is. Here he is.
I had to get my coffee refill and get rid of the one that I just drank. So,
well, okay. Well, what I'm going to do now, of course, Robert, I'm going to hand it all over to you for the moment. Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for the warning.
Now, but what I'm going to start off with, we got disclosure. There's a lot of stuff the government is not telling us. We're not heading for the disclosure everybody's talking about. I mean, they blow it up like a big balloon. The bubble's going to burst. And yes, Heidi, hey, you can say something. Yes.
Oh, hi, Carly and Julia. They're over in Oz. Okay.
You're okay. Sorry about it. Anyway, they're not going to kind of tell us anything, and everything's they're going to say, oh, it's top secret, it's classified, and nothing's going to come out. All it is, they're just building up the industry for a new documentary, or they're going to build up the industry for a new book, or they're going to build up the industry for something else, and the story goes on and on. People forget, and I keep saying this, ufology today is an industry, a multi-million-dollar industry. Do they want full disclosure? No. They'll get 12 months after it happens, and there'll be nothing more to talk about. So
wow, I never looked at it like that. Interesting. Yeah.
And when you watch these documentaries that come out each year by a certain person that always goes by the Joshua Tree, I'm not going to mention names. Anyway, I mean, it's a new documentary, same story in a different order with different narrators. But it's covering the same stuff constantly. It's always about free energy. It's always all about technologies. It's always about nothing new. Now with this, what's going on in Congress, I mean, it's like they throw it as Robert would say, they're throwing the big turd out in the Darlingtons, but it's not a turd, it's diarrhea, and it's going everywhere. I mean,
Merry Christmas, one and all.
But the thing is, what I'm saying is going everywhere. They put it out there. There's too many questions to be answered. And what they need to do is narrow it down and say, okay, what's Roswell? Did it really happen? Let's get the truth out. On one question. Why can't they answer one question? And then we can ask one question at a time. Don't put it out there as an open forum and say, do aliens exist? Were there crash crafts? Were there this? Were there that? There's too many questions. And the people, they just, classified. But it's been over 75 years now since Roswell. It should be let out of the bag on the freedoms of information. It should be let out, and they should. And this is what they're not focusing on. But you got certain people, a couple of people that talk about, I've seen aliens, I've seen this, and I've seen that. The whistleblowers that come to fame all of a sudden. I mean, I'm not, they're probably nice people. They're just doing a job. That's my personal. All of this is my opinion. But you don't get to 73 years of age and see bullshit and not recognize it. You know what I mean? and we've been what they call led down a path. We've been walked away from what really matters to a different area. Now Congress says, well, we can't tell you this. Well, what's it all been? What's it been about since Luis Elizondo exposed the beans about the Tic Tac UFOs in 2017? We haven't got anywhere any further. They haven't showed us anything more exciting, and everything's only been say-so and no evidence on it. I mean, they're still trying to prove that it's real, and nobody's playing the game. So this is how it's going to keep going and going and going. Now it's up to people like us. Like it's like, I mean, I don't know. Look, everything you read about and everything, it's all speculation unless you actually got actual fact. Everything is speculation. I mean, the person can write 10 books on the subject and he become an authority, but he's only an authority on his own assumptions. It's not fact. It's still not fact. I mean, you could probably say, well, the evidence is there. Yes, it is. But It doesn't stand up, and is anybody going to admit to it? And this is the problem we're facing at the day.
Right.
But, and that's just my little spiel now. I mean, I'll let everybody else have a bit of a go there.
There you go. I love it.
But we are fed on bullshit. I mean, we are fed on capital BS. You know?
Well, B, do you mind if I grab the ladle and stir that pot a little?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, go for it, mate. You're the man. You know how to throw the turd on the table, mate. By the way, that's the prof's. That's the prof's words, by the way, which I have adopt.
Well, it just accurately describes whatever happens when my yap is flapping. So that's what you get. I should come with a warning label. I know I've been told that before. But most people, like my daughters,
when wet,
they gave up and they finally they're at the point where it's like, okay, we got to hear what Dad's got to say because it's coming. So the discourse issue is wrong, or disclosure, rather, not discourse. And the discourse within the disclosure is wrong. And the reason it's wrong is the delineation of what disclosure. And Chastiy, Heidi's heard some of this. So Chastiy, for your benefit, I'm really, I get linguistically excited, and I specifically dive into making sure that there's whatever the use of a word is, that there's an understanding, a common agreement of the definition of that word. So disclosure right now is being used primarily on, are there other crafts? Well, if there are crafts, which there are, and if they have had them, which they have, and there's been a whole completely different side of the administration and governance of our species that's been going on for a long time. The real question is not whether the crafts are ours or theirs. I think 80-90% of what we see is actually ours, but it's from theirs. It's stuff that we got from them. And that's a whole nother issue with disclosure. But just the word disclosure on really what that means, if there are other crafts which are being piloted, built, and flown by other beings, what I affectionately refer to as our cosmic cousins, space aliens, extraterrestrials, all the stuff. Well, to me, they are all just another manifestation, just like we are, in the reality that consciousness creates through the energy that it is. So that's the simplest thing. The more important point is that disclosure, if they say that these craft are from someone and somewhere else, then that means we're not alone. That's the real thing that's going to make heads pop off.
Oh, yeah.
The problem with that is that disclosure has happened millennia ago. We've been told that we not only have been visited, but we are the result of the intended intervention of another species that exists outside of Earth. They apparently, at least, and there's all kinds of, as B said, everything is speculation. What I'm saying is speculation, but it's mine, just like everybody's got theirs. It's kind of like, what's that thing about opinions? Everybody's got one.
Like
but what makes sense to you? That matters. It's what makes sense to you.
What makes sense to me is that we are engineered. We are the result of direct intervention by another species that lives in our universe, which is all conscious. Everything is consciousness. So my whole thing, and maybe this is a kind of a good segue to start my little sharing here, but my contention is that I have my philosophy I call informatica. Informatica is simply based on the observation that everything is information. And information is then used to construct metrics that happen in the matrix, which is where everything is. So the tag to informatica is the metrics in the matrix. So it's all information. There's no science or there's no philosophy. There's just observation about what happens. And the one thing that's clear is that we are all experienced this thing that we collectively and individually experience called consciousness. If there wasn't any consciousness, there would be nothing else that you as an individual consciousness stamp would even be interacting with, because you're not a part of that reality. But you are a part of that reality because it's just like you, it's a part of everything. Everything comes from consciousness.
Yeah.
So are you with me so far?
With you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
so on that, and that was a download. It's been developing over about 5 years now. It's just kept grinding away at me, and I would keep looking at things and going, okay, well, here's more metrics. Here's the formulas and the calculations and the delineations, differentiations and distinctions that we put on whatever that information is, so that we can take that pattern and put it into our memory banks. Because we are pattern recognition in the way that our consciousness functions.
Wow.
It's not science. That's not theology, philosophy. It's just an observation. That's how it works. We are pattern oriented and pattern recognition. And what's interesting, this whole AI thing, and I know this because I are in it, the whole AI thing of trying to, of the concept of these things, of programs, software and hardware becoming sentient, having cognition, a mentation like we do, having this multi sensory experience and having all these different inputs. You can't build that into machines. You can't build it into software and hardware.
Nice.
You can get associations and simulations. You can get some pretty cool stuff, but at the end of the day, it's very simple what it is.
It's just a binary code, another binary code.
Well, it's certainly code, and it eventually gets to assembler when it's executed on the chipsets and all that stuff, and it does its thing. But all that is okay. So first of all, if we realize that this whole being able to interact with a computer and ask it questions and have it go get information and come back and assemble it for us is just the next evolution of what we've had for decades. Alexa, Siri. Remember in the Windows back in the 90s, remember Clippy? The little
Paperclip.
Yeah, right?
Yep.
All these things were assistants. AI is nothing more than an evolved assistant using the power of computing. It's made of two things. It's called a prompt scripting language. That's where you enter your question. And then a large language model, which is accessed through what they call a neural network. So you write in your question, the words in the scripting language go, let's go find all the associations of where this word is used and all the context and around it with whatever parameters they use. And
It's
that's
electronic dictionary.
It's just a big scrape of data. And it's always static. It's only a snapshot of the information that's available at the time that it does the search. Most people don't realize that when the chat came out, I think the original version, I could be wrong, but when they released it in 2021, it was 18 months or 2 years behind in the data that was available to it. So if you did a search on anything and tried to create whatever you were doing, only the data that was available as of March of 2020, I think it was available to the system. So if there was new stuff since then that you knew you wanted to access, it couldn't find it. It wouldn't find it because it wasn't in there. So it's a static information actuator that is highly designed and based on some really cool math to make up the models to go do this stuff. But that's all it does. You can't, if you look at, here we go. Let me go ahead before I squirrel off. I just caught myself. I should get.
But it's just like a test, you know. If you ask Siri, say, "Is this man gay?" and you would know if you meant happy or bisexual. You know, it just wouldn't know. I mean, how do you define it?
That's a whole nother rabbit hole. You want to go there? With showing this.
But it's to the point where we can identify a machine can't, because it's just a word that's been adopted. You know,
a machine.
That word's been kidnapped.
Machines are man-made, ergo they are inorganic. The entire universe is and this has been the way that the universe, the reality that all of the different cultures that we've been able to find and decipher have said. First, they've all said somebody from somewhere or from some underwater even came up, had this great knowledge, was this massive individual and personality, and gave us all this stuff. Sometimes they brought a crew or a horde with them. But for the most part, there was some identity, some personality that was the head of whatever that system is. The Abrahamic religions are an example of that. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam all have personalities at the top. They have somebody that is casting forth the decrees of how the dominion will act and behave. So at the same time, all of their sciences, particularly astrology, which is the oldest known data set that we have recorded that has any kind of consistency, and the consistency around different places on the planet is, you get questions there. It's like, how could they all use the same thing or be so damn accurate? The Mayans are the most famous.
We're just fed on BS. I mean, look, I've said this before. Look, I believe in God. I'm a spiritual man, and that's my choice in life. And but the thing is, when we talk about the Trinity, three gods in one. I mean, if you Google it and get the facts on this, it actually tells you that I think Terrellium, his name was, I think it was 150 to 160 years after the death of Jesus, he did a study on Jesus. And he says, oh, this man's a God. And he's a God the Father, God the Son, and the Holy Ghost. He created the Trinity. You can look that up. Christians in those days were gone afield right through Europe, Germany, Great Britain. And of course, what people don't realize is that when the Catholic Church formed, they adopted the Trinity as the foundation to their church. But what people don't realize, 90% of Christians in those days didn't believe that Jesus was a God. They believed he was a teacher, a prophet. That's what they honestly believed. The Catholic Church came along and they proclaimed him as a God. Now, as much as the Catholic Church wrote their own Bible from the Judaism Christian Bible, right? Judaism Bible, right? They get this right. Now, they altered it around. And what they forget is the 10 Commandments says, the first commandment says, first I am the Lord thy God, and shalt not have strange gods before me, right? Now, if you're a Christian, you're supposed to, if you believe in God, you're supposed to honor those words. If God knows all, knows everything, he knows the beginning, he knows the end, he saw it coming. But everybody proclaimed Jesus as a God. I mean, I'm not saying Jesus was a bad man. I reckon he was a good man. He was an idealist. He was trying to put, he was a Jew. He belonged to the synagogue, and he saw the corruption going on, and he fought and he took his path. Now, I'll just finish this spool in a sec, Robert. I can see it itching there, mate. I can see you itching. But now the thing is,
you never go.
Constantine took it over and created the Catholic Church because he couldn't afford to have armies in Europe. They were going bankrupt. Rome was going bankrupt, so he started the Catholic Church, pulled the armies out and replaced them with cardinals and bishops as advisors to the kings and to the dictators. And people do not know the history of this, right? And remember, when Jesus was crucified, Jews do not remove bodies in the dark, number one. Number two, you don't put a dead body in a borrowed tomb. What was a borrowed tomb? Why they put him in a tomb, close it up, and it's borrowed? In other words, he wasn't really dead because they only borrowed it. And the herbs that were taken in, British historians found out they had got the name of these herbs, and they're not embalming herbs. They were healing herbs. And then there's another story going about that Jesus was actually and Mary Magdalene and that went to France, and they built a bloody massive big cathedral there in their honor. But none of this is taught. But you can do the history. If people look into it and look at it, they say, hey, listen, everybody in those days spoke Latin. Right? You know where I'm going here, Rob? Everybody spoke Latin in those days.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Hebrews spoke Hebrew. Jesus was a Hebrew. So, but right through Europe, and everybody spoke Latin. Now, all of a sudden, when they started putting the Bible together, there was one of the apostles on an island somewhere. I forget his name. Was it Peter or no? It wasn't Peter. I forget which one it was. Anyway, he actually wrote it in Greek. Hello. No one spoke Greek in those days. But where did this Greek come from?
Well, I've always had the question: where did they find? My question is, where did they find 4 guys named Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John back then in that region? That those were not common names by any stretch of the imagination. So you already have a clear translation from someone for some malintent. And the current major volume of Christianity, of the Holy Bible, is typically the King James and the Gang version. And if you go down that rabbit hole, if you've heard the name Francis Bacon, and if you've ever had a chance to look at some of his contributions to history, Bacon, there's some really good data that suggests that Bacon, there was 66, I think, different translators and scholars that were brought in to do the translation and create the King James. Apparently, most of, if not all of that crew were Bacon's boys. Francis Bacon is apparently one of the main influences of the translation that we have today known as the King James. Now, the translation itself, there's all kinds of debate whether was Christ, was he Jewish or was he Aramaic? Was he he was an Arab. He wasn't the Jews. The Jews have never been the Jews, which is that name was given to him in the 1500s, somewhere around in there. They're actually Hebrews, right? So that's the true term that people just kind of gloss over and don't realize. Again, back to my penchant for being linguistically at least described. All of those names, this whole thing with Palestinians, there are no Palestinians. There is a place that was called Palestine at one point. But when you look at who those people are, they're basically Arab gypsies. They don't have an allegiance to a particular land, or in fact, they've been in and out of all of the surrounding countries. Most of the out has been because they've been kicked out. So you go, well, why is that? Well, gypsies don't really adhere to, a culture or societal or, a tribe. They're a tribe in and of themselves. But my point there is that, getting into what I'm going to show you here, is it time?
Yeah. Can I just finish something off I wanted to say?
Yeah.
If people take the time where the Christians took from the Judean Bible, you'll find in Genesis 1:26 and Genesis 1:27. Now, Genesis 1:27 says, when God made man, made it in his own image. But in Genesis 1:26, it actually says, when the gods made man, they made him in their likeness. So hold it. Who's right? I mean, the Judaism Christian Bible took it from the Jewish Bible, but they forgot to remove Genesis 1:26 and then left it there. And so you can actually see it.
But here's the thing that is, for me, is the best way to figure out that situation, that set of data. The Torah, the first 5 books of the Old Testament, supposedly written by Moses, right? Talks about Genesis, creation, and Adam and Eve, and all that. What if you knew that same story with a boatload more detail in each one of the steps was written 1,500 years before Moses supposedly wrote Genesis? And that is the Enuma Elish, the 7 tablets of creation, in the Sumerian language. And it's commonly, you can go online and you can see.
Yeah.
And so, all right, so was
from the Sumerian text. It's all from the Sumerian text.
Plagiarize the Sumerian story, and more importantly, what do you find in the Sumerian version? All of the stuff about how we were created and why, and all the the iterations, all of the problems. It took 14 or so many different iterations to finally get the man that they wanted to get, Adam, right? And just a whole bunch more detail. And you go, well, what kind of credibility do I now give that book that all this particular Abrahamic sect follows? Because in the Abrahamic religions, right, everybody's got a personality. Allah, or Muhammad and Allah, Yahweh, and what was the other one?
Jim Goodall.
We're not going to tell you. Oh, hey.
Well, look, Jim's been so quiet lately. I must apologize, Professor. I mean, I thought Jim was falling asleep there. I mean, and I just thought, well, I just kind of bring him up on the screen, just let him know that we do notice him. We know he's there.
You can enjoy my sunset out of my backyard.
I know. It was like glowing behind you. And it was like
it looks like the coming of Christ, doesn't it?
Yeah, well,
the angels, the trumpets.
Now go, Merry Christmas,
anyway,
one and all.
Anyway, listen. Okay, let's drop this religion. Robert.
Yes.
Professor. Now, get to your presentation, buddy. Quick.
Okay.
Why I say this because I don't know how long Heidi's got. Because I know
I'm on borrowed time. I just bought myself 10 minutes with my son, so I have about 10 minutes.
Right.
But I'll peacefully bow out if you're mid-thought. I don't want to interrupt.
Oh, no, so if you need to go anytime, you can just go and piss off. Come on, you can go.
Yeah, I've heard that before, Heidi. So, you know.
I sat through 3 hours last time. I had the best time ever. I definitely didn't mean, but you know, Santa doesn't do everything by himself.
Yeah, we know. Hey, the parenthood, isn't it? Hey, this is good when you get about 73. You don't have that problem anymore. And you know what I do? I'm the type of granddad. I give my kids grandkids energy drinks and load them up on bloody Laxette chocolates and then send them to their parents.
Oh my gosh.
It's called a grandparents' revenge.
I know, right? Well, before you do start, Robert, I was going to say, because if I do dip out quietly, I want to wish you all very Merry Christmas. And I'm sure I'll talk to you before the new year, but thank you so much for this beautiful community. And thank you to those. Hi, Jessica. Thanks to the peeps. So just Merry Christmas. And if I slowly just go then I'll just go that way in a little bit.
You can always come back anytime. You can always come back and chat with us anytime when we're on. And hey, all of you, I mean, we're not.
You'll probably still be on after I put him to bed, so we'll see.
Yeah, jump back on.
I know. I might just
back on if that's back. You know.
Might very well be in.
Okay. If we don't see you, Merry Christmas to you, and have an awesome
Merry
one.
Christmas, Heidi.
Anyway, carry on, Robert.
I'll try to go through this in 15 minutes or so, because the material that I've got is much longer than what we'll take a look at, and it's basically to just kind of put some more information and perspective into this conversation about the moon. I am in the camp, first of all, from my physics perspective. We don't have an iron core in the Earth. We have a plasma core. It's not a solid metallic ball that's burning and spinning. It's plasma. It's a different energy type. And we're going to find out that plasma is going to be one of the most important frequencies and energies that we get involved with in the future. It's going to transform everything. So we have a plasma core at the Earth, and that plasma's natural expression is growth. It just adds more of itself as it does what plasma is. And that causes expansion. That's one of the reasons that, aside from the James Webb Space Telescope that just sent back pictures of galaxies that are 26 billion light years away, doubling the previous number, we're getting data like that all the time. And they're finally using, the James Webb is using infrared. And that's why it's getting the images that it is. It's a light band that we can't see. And that is changing. That's a new toy of telemetry that's changing our access and ability to see information. And then look at it ourselves and make our, at the end of the day, it's all speculation, like B said. And once you realize that everything you hear from anybody else, including me, is my speculation of whatever the hell it is that I think I'm talking about, because I do have a habit of thinking, trying to put too many thoughts into one mouth. Having said that, the idea of information is what I'm going to share about the moon. Okay. And B, I've got the screen shared there. If you'd put that up.
Okay. Bring it up, mate. Where are you? Oh, yeah. Ed.
All right.
Is that the one?
That's the one.
Yeah.
So shameless little plug. This is the new Nexus Nextcast website. It's at nexusnextcast.com. It's where I got all of my shows and the interviews I've done on this concept of informatica and consciousness. There's a slideshow in the middle here that goes through what informatica is and the approach from my perspective, how the sciences are going to transform, because our current models, quantum and general relativity and all these string theory, are based on a grit model, meaning there's this atom, there's this billiard ball somewhere that they keep trying to find by smashing billiard balls together. It's not it at all. It's waves. Everything is a wave. Everything is in motion. And just like the frequency bands that we can't see with our eyes, there's all the same frequency bands in the materium. So I go through this in this slideshow here. And this is the frequency physics that I think we are going to see. I think this is where we're going. So there's that on there. And then I've started a news report kind of series called the Nextcast Report. And what I'm doing is taking different topics and then doing the news that I think is useful at that time. So I got one on AI and technology, space, and then archaeology. And there's 4 or 5 more, hopefully before the end of the year. But this is the new Nexus Nextcast website. So
cool.
If you are so inclined, please check it out.
You bet.
Okay. So this first one is a crystal castle orbiting the moon. So take a look at this and see what you think.
It's not there.
Where you going there, buddy?
Hold on. Sorry, I didn't realize that I had to move across my little tabs here. Let me try that again.
NASA. Some claim
Hear it
it's
all right?
showing nothing like that of the famous pyramid we have covered in the past.
You can hear it okay?
Seemingly rediscovered on an image once claimed by NASA as an overexposed image. Yet there are many other anomalies and objects NASA neither confirm nor deny the existence of, yet still release said images to the world. They do not deny and equally accept that many they cannot explain. The Shard. This image is a 44-time enlargement of a lunar orbiter frame coded LO384M, taken with a medium-resolution camera at a distance of at least 250 miles. It shows an object dubbed by Richard Hoagland as the Shard. Interestingly, although some have dismissed the object as a simple camera malfunction, the Shard also possesses a shadow correctly aligned with the position of Sol at that time. According to Hoagland, quote, "Poor resolution images like this one of the Shard have led some to conclude it is an ephemeral outgassing event, However, the Enterprise mission enhancements reveal no spray or splatter, which would be consistent with such a conclusion. He goes on to state, "The object appears to be solid, though badly battered by meteors." End quote. Above and behind the shard is the tower, another among this collection of mystifying images of apparent lunar objects. The tower has been researched and studied by many people since its discovery among NASA's images. A massive structure, calculated as being an incredible 7 miles high. This estimation clearly makes any consideration that the tower is indeed a real structural anomaly, soaring from the lunar surface, a tough pill to swallow. Yet the images remain an incredibly difficult thing to explain, and the tower's cuboid feature atop just adds to this ongoing mystery, yet one of deep intrigue, is the mystery of Castle. The name given to an object captured by the Apollo 10 astronauts during the Moon orbit mission, codenamed AS-10-32-4822. It is of a 1-mile-long object floating miles above the lunar surface, like a satellite to our satellite, that, even more amazingly, is possibly like that of what makes Saturn's rings, that being ice crystals of pure water, is apparently, according to future enhanced image study, also made from a material alike glittering glass. Apart from the reports of strange music being heard on the far side of the moon, a claim few will ever be able to confirm the truth of, this extraordinary object is something very few know of, and even less have studied. Unless more attention is given to such incredible anomalies, ones witnessed by us already, and so relatively close to our little home, we may never know what they are. They are, undoubtedly, highly compelling.
So what do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a saying that, and I can't remember who said it, a very famous person said it, says, you know, we're gonna if we prove that we're absolutely not alone, or we prove absolutely we are alone, which one's more terrifying?
Yeah.
Well,
out of it all, mate, I rather think that the leaders of the world are the most terrifying ones of all.
There you go.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, if they were bad, they would have been checkmate a long time ago. If these aliens were kind of want to take over the world, I mean, if they're so far advanced, I mean,
yeah,
mate,
if they can come and go here across the universe, if they wanted to obliterate us, they, you know, for all we know, the moon's our Death Star, and there is a big crater there. You know, it could be disguised as, oh, that's where the weapon comes out and obliterates Earth, but they wouldn't be up there for for all those, for all that time.
Well, the thing is, even the ancient Aboriginals in Australia, they talk about thousands and thousands of years ago, before the moon existed. In their what they call in their Dreamtime culture, what they call Dreamtime legends. I personally, I mean, it goes against physics how it doesn't kind of move type thing. It just orbits Earth. And it's too big to be caught in our bloody gravitational field. I mean, so it was actually put there.
That's exactly it. Yes. Yes. That was part. It was part there.
And how come we're only seeing one side and we don't really see the other?
That's right.
I mean,
it has been photographed by us and by the Indians and by the Chinese now.
Well, your good friend, Jim, what's his name? He's dead now. The one that used to work for CIA as a pilot. What's his name?
John Lear.
John Lear. No? That's it. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
He talked about millions of aliens living on the back of the moon.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I had a friend of mine. When some of the Apollo images were released to the public, where it looked like there were structures. He was a photographic analyst for the Strategic Air Command, and his job was to look at imagery and determine where, how, time, and whatever it is. I mean, he was the type that looked at it scientifically versus optically. And he said there's structures and of images that allegedly were taken of the moon and on the backside of the moon. Those are definitely very, very tall structures. He looked at the face on Mars way back then, and he said it's symmetrical, it's man-made.
Wow.
And I spent some time up at Kitt Peak National Observatories as a docent, and one of the things that came out of the thing that this is a worldwide meeting. The consensus was that for every star in the universe is 1.5 planets. And out of that incredible number, there are 2 billion Earth-like planets orbiting a similar sized brown dwarf star as our sun in the inhabitable zone with liquid water. Wow. 2 billion.
Can you grasp that?
And the universe is not 14.4 or 3 billion years old. Oh, it's 27 point something billion years old. And they think it may double again. Wow. So, and the more we look out, the more we see, the less we know.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? Yeah. I'm so drawn to the moon. I don't quite understand why. I mean, I am very, very drawn to it. Always have, always. I mean, I just always have been. I don't think it's anything nefarious, but I don't know if it's like just intuitively. I just remember looking at it one day and going, there is something so weird about that. Like, and this is right when I kind of started getting into like David Icke and things like that, and just hearing testimonies. I'm like, that just resonates so deeply. It isn't what they say it is. That's for sure. So.
What astrological sign?
I'll be right back. I have to get some more water.
What was that?
What astrological sign are you?
I'm a Scorpio.
You're a Scorpio. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
The reason I was asking is the Cancers and Pisces, which are also your fellow water signs.
Okay.
Okay. Have an affinity with the moon.
Oh, okay.
The moon is our ruler, or our main influencer, even to a large degree over the sun.
Okay.
And or even Venus, but that's both in tropical Western astrology as well as Vedic. But I was asking because sometimes I know I've always had like this thing with the moon. The moon and I got it going on, and it's like, okay, I can connect with that.
Yeah.
You couldn't explain it other than a resonance, like I was saying earlier. I'm always looking for something I resonate with.
Yes.
And I did have a Christian ministry back in the 80s. I had at a Pentecostal church, I had a music ministry. So I had 2 bands, 3 guitar acoustic and a full 9-piece band. And we were rocking and doing, this is in the 80s. So we were doing like Chicago and the old bands of the 70s and just doing all the crazy stuff. And as well as our own. But we would go and minister, and I got involved deep into that. I went full tilt. I didn't do a jackknife. I did a jackknife, not feet or hands first. So what I found was that there was an incredibly intense and very visceral and spiritual experience I was having with the rituals and the things that they did, speaking in tongues, laying hands on the sick, casting out devils, doing all that stuff. They were the folks you went to if you wanted to, the extra stuff.
Right.
So I experienced these things, but the definitions they were giving me for them, they kept making me tilt my head like the RCA dog, and I'm going, okay, well, wait a minute. I need to know more. And the more I asked, because I was exploring, I was on a quest to understand what this was, because I knew the experience was real, but what I was being told, what was happening, didn't sound right. So I continued to press till finally the only answer they could come up with on a regular basis was, it's got to be faith. You just got to believe. You know, I said, I think there's more to know here than to just have to believe.
Right.
And I want to go find the know.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yes.
I like the concept of gnosis, you know, which is the origin of knowledge, the word that we use today. But the original term, gnosis, meant not only knowledge, but that you felt it, you knew it in your bones. It was a different knowing, just knowing it versus knowing it, being in it. So the moon, I think it's purposely put there by our progenitors. I think they're there now. That I think there's variations of the story of how many came and what they did and when they left and how many stayed and what all of the machinations were, because there seems to be a lot of variation in the stories of what happened and what went on. Seem to be a lot of this the same thing that humanity has in our own mythos and cosmologies, which is this patriarchal hierarchical structure, mostly of a familial nature. And there's a lot of conflict. Brothers and sisters don't get along. Parents and children don't get along. People are, you know, constantly battling for this and that, having this right, this inheritance. I mean, it's constant strife. And you go, did you ever get along and, you know, have a period where you didn't have all this chaos going on? I mean, it's very rich in the Mahabharata and the Rig Veda and the ancient Vedic texts in Sanskrit. There's just, you talk about having a different view of reality. To them, everything, and this is the same even with the Greeks and all the ancient, the Persians and all the different empires back then, their philosophy was they looked at everything as being alive. Everything that was living, that was organic, because it was alive, it had some level of conscious. There was some degree of conscious that it had because it went about its own thing and knew what it was supposed to do. And how does that happen? Where does that come from? How does a little seed morph and manifest into the plant, the tree, whatever it might be? There's no definition in science for that. Neurobiology and the whole biological field is a twit over the last decade or so, with the whole epigenetic thing, which when it was originally suggested in biology, it was like, you can't talk about that. It's no. And now 20 years later, it's the in thing. It's what everybody's doing. And they're doing it for the wrong reasons, again, in my opinion. But
sorry, Robert,
yeah.
if you don't mind me asking, have you ever heard the theory that the moon is actually what they call a vessel from Mars? Mars was doomed. Apparently, remote viewers are supposed to say, "Well, okay,
I've got that lined up."
People left Mars because it was a dying planet to look for a new home, and they were supposed to go back to get other people. And apparently, the moon was originally their moon, which they dug out and used it as a vessel, and they came to Earth and they put it in orbit. And of course, some people say, oh, yeah, they could be the real Anunnakis from Mars rather than Planet X or whatever they want to call it. And this is where it all started. And of course, there was a war between Enki and Ilk, a power struggle. One was trying to protect the inbreds, what they call the creation of man, because they class them as sentient beings. And of course, you know, we just can't treat them as slaves. You know, the original creation, they couldn't breed, so they created women that they can replenish their labor force.
Well, you've heard the idea that the originators were actually androgynous. they didn't have a sex.
That's right.
Right. And there were 6 different delineations of the different types that could be made to have to procreate and would have some kind of reproduction system, not necessarily sex in the way that we think about sex.
In ancient Greeks, believed in Aphrodites. Aphrodites were children of the gods.
That's the point I was making earlier. There seems to be a consistent story in all the mythos that everybody had the same problems. It was like if somebody would have invented therapy and dropped it in, they would have made a mint with all of the chaos and confusion that was going on. But anyway, the moon, I think, is artificial. It's by these folks. It's purposely there to I mean, there's so many anomalies. Let's get on to the other ones I'll show you, because you brought up the RV, and I've got those guys in here too. So I thought that video was very interesting, gave us some, focus on a few of the strange anomalies that are out there that need to be, like you said, they're just not investigating this stuff. The only people that are doing it are the ones that have been fortunate enough to not get stamped by some academic institution and group assigning, Ohio gozaimasu on your ability to regurgitate what we told you.
Right.
Right. Because that's all it is, really.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at this one here. This is the new Chandrayaan Indian satellite that went up to the moon, or Indian lander that went to the moon a couple of months ago. You see it all right?
Which proved that the moon had a complex geological structure hidden deep within, rather than being uniformly rocky like the Martian moons Phobos and Deimos. But what is a moonquake? A moonquake is the lunar equivalent of an earthquake. While they tend to be less strong than earthquakes, they last longer. While it has been long established that the moon is seismically active, the reason the lunar surface experiences quakes is different from the Earth. According to experts, there are 4 different kinds of moonquakes. The first is deep moonquakes, which are about 700 kilometers below the surface and probably caused by tides. There are also vibrations from the impact of meteorites. Also, there are thermal quakes caused by the expansion of the frigid crust when first illuminated by the morning sun after 2 weeks of deep freeze lunar night. The last kind of moonquakes are shallow moonquakes, only 20 or 30 kilometers below the surface. According to NASA, the first 3 are mild and harmless, but shallow moonquakes are unique. While earthquakes last for less than half a minute, shallow moonquakes last for a remarkably long time, more than 10 minutes. Moonquakes that have been observed have been mostly less than 3 on the Richter scale, with the largest recorded ones having a magnitude between 5 and 5.7, according to the Encyclopedia of the Solar System. The moon rings like a bell, owing to the absence of water and the very fractured nature of the upper few hundred meters.
Owing to the absence of some fluid. Okay. What else you got besides that? Why would it ring like a bell? In fact, when they did it on Apollo 12, I think it was, they purposely smashed the lander, the booster, into the moon, and it rang for over an hour.
Mm. And when they say absence of water, now they're actually saying there is water within the.
Well, helium-3, I think, is the big nugget up there, and it's down in the South Pole, and I think they might get to some of that in the next ones. But I mean, the whole idea. I mean, if you're going to tell us that it rings like a bell, what's that imagery come to in your mind?
Well, it's hollow.
Right? It's what's in there, and why does it ring?
Unlike Earth, the moon is dry, cool, and rigid, like a chunk of stone. So moonquakes cause vibrations like a tuning fork. However, the south pole of the moon, where Chandrayaan-3 has landed, is unexplored, and ISRO's findings are expected to provide.
You notice how the surface, wherever you see a crater, it's like a directing impact. It doesn't matter where on the surface. It's like the the meteor came directly from that angle and just went straight down. There's none that hit at an angle and then slide and leave a trail. They're all direct impacts. Find that curious.
Provide more insight into the phenomenon. In recent years, advanced analysis tools and computer models have enabled scientists to sift through the data gathered by Apollo and other missions and build a clearer picture of the moon's mysterious interior. A 2011 NASA study revealed that the moon's core, much like Earth's, was likely made up of fluid iron surrounding a dense, solid iron ball.
Likely.
In May 2023, researchers used gravitational field data to confirm this iron core hypothesis. They also suggested that blobs of the moon's molten mantle could be separated from the rest, floating to the surface as clumps of iron and generating quakes as they went. But these findings are just the beginning of the moon's secrets. Magnetic fields are produced inside planetary bodies by the churning movement of material in planets' electrically conductive molten cores. Today, the interior of the non-magnetic moon is quite different from Earth's magnetic innards, as it is dense and mostly frozen, containing only a small outer core region that is fluid and molten.
So you've got a solid iron core with a fluid over that has a mantle on top of that, and it rings like a bell? I mean,
it's hollow.
I'm trying to look at this and go, okay, well, you're not explaining that. What you just said disproves the ability to ring like a bell.
Yeah,
right? So anyway, I find that fascinating. Let's move on to this next one here. This guy I've been following him for shit since he started about 8 or 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Mr. MBB333, right?
Yeah.
You know of him, Chastiy?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's
great
cool.
follow.
Yeah.
People send him stuff from all over the world, videos and images. I mean, he does some really good work.
Yeah.
And he's out of Arizona, Jim.
Ah.
He's up, I think he's just outside of Phoenix, somewhere up in there. So this is the latest one just today about some of the video that's coming in.
Something in the nighttime sky. This was last year, about 2 weeks after Mandy saw the object from southern Arizona. It was spotted again. So there's something up there. All these people can't be wrong, and they all can't be making up these videos that have these anomalies in them. In fact, the video you're going to hear by Alley Cat, they ask in the video, someone asks in the video, what is that?
Yeah. I bet I know.
Pretty wild stuff. Okay, here we go, guys. Enjoy. I think this is that's the picture right there. I want you to hear the interview. This is Mandy from it's right here. Okay, this is the interview I did with Mandy in December of last year, and this was still fresh on her mind. You can hear the enthusiasm in her voice. Listen to this interview I did of this young lady from southern Arizona, of a young lady that witnessed this in the sky. Here we go. This is me calling her. You're going to hear the phone ring. Volume cranked up. Here we go.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hello. How are you?
Good. How are you, Mandy?
I am doing well. I am very glad that you see what I'm seeing here. I've talked to a couple people about this, and I keep getting shrugged off, and I'm like almost traumatized by what I saw.
Yeah. But I felt, I could tell that you guys saw something extraordinary. You're saying it looked like a planet. Is that the best description?
Yeah, it was frightening.
Chris?
It was larger than the moon. I mean, not a lot bigger, but just a slight bit bigger than the moon. I mean, we could see in the photos that I sent you, if you look to the very top edge of the frame of the photo, you can see kind of a glow.
Yeah.
That's the glow from the moon being just slightly out of frame. And it was just slightly bigger around than the moon was. And the reason that I'd gone outside, my dog woke me up to go out to go to the bathroom, and she's very stubborn. I let her outside, and she will not come back in. So I went outside to call her so I didn't wake my husband up, calling her at the door. We've got a sliding glass door right in the bedroom. And I stepped out on the porch, and I kind of eyeballed around for her and figured I'd give her a little bit more time. And I looked up to the sky. I always look at the Pleiades if I go out at night.
Sure.
And I looked up to the sky, and I thought it was about midnight. So I was kind of, and I may have said western sky in my email. I meant it was to the east. It was like towards New Mexico from us. So like from your point of view, it would have been like probably over, you're in Phoenix, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it would have been like over Superstition Mountains kind of area in that direction. So I looked up in the sky and I saw it, and then I didn't, my brain was like, I had just woken up, and I was like, didn't think nothing of it. And I looked around because I was like, okay, the Pleiades is not right there, because it's usually where it's at, like around midnight. And I scanned over the sky, and I'm like, okay, well, my eyes are fine because all the stars were out, and I saw the Pleiades more like above me, and I was like, what did I just see? And I turned and I looked back, and my heart just sunk. It was just massive. And at the sake of sounding corny, I don't even watch Star Wars or anything, but it literally looked like the Death Star. It looked like it was like another moon, and it was about the same distance above the horizon as it was below the moon. And I'm not good with degrees. My husband says about 15 degrees above the horizon.
Okay.
And we watched it for about an hour, and it followed with the pace of the moon, but it was dark. It was like gray. So if the moon hadn't been out, it would have been really hard to have seen if it were there. But it was being like illuminated by the light of the moon. You can like literally see the moonlight like shining off the top of it, lighting it up. Otherwise, it was just otherwise dark. And we watched it I watched it total for almost an hour. It was about 30 minutes just sitting there dumbfounded before I finally woke my husband up.
Can you imagine?
Wow. I had him come out, and his jaw was kind of dropped too. And I was like, I'm waking up the kids. We've got 2 teenage children that were at home, and I went in and got the kids up, made them come out, and everybody, we just stood there. Like,
wow.
We didn't know what to make of it. We all literally thought we were looking at a massive planet in the sky.
True.
And it was to the extent that I actually went out the next day and I purchased a high-powered telescope, and I stayed up till 4 o'clock the next morning waiting to see it come back. And nothing. And I've been regularly watching the sky since then at night, trying to spot it. Yeah, it was very ominous, and
Wow.
I don't know. 2 years ago, summer before last, my husband and I were out in the front yard, and I saw your classic saucer UFO with the lights rotating, like fiery orange lights rotating around it. And I grabbed hold of him, and I was like, "Oh my God, look at that!" And we turned around, and it was huge. It was more north from where I'm located, and when I saw that was the first sighting that I've ever really had.
Yeah.
And I felt overwhelmed. When I saw it, was like joy and like this weird like feeling of love. And I don't even know what came over me, but I ran out towards my backyard with my arms spread, just yelling, "I love you! Oh my God, I love you!" And I don't know why I did that, but I felt this overwhelming like emotion towards it. And when I saw the thing that we saw November 16th, that was kind of the opposite feeling. I didn't know what to think of it. I was afraid of what I was looking at.
Yeah,
I was afraid I'm like looking at wormwood, like set in a bureau or something.
Or part of it. Okay, from your location, it was in the western sky?
No, it was in the eastern sky. I'm super dyslexic, so I may have put western sky in my email. It was to the east of us, so like towards New Mexico.
Gotcha. Okay. So that was the majority of the interview. The rest of it, we're kind of, talking about directions, as you heard. Thank you, Graceful Shooter. You're welcome. Thank you. I appreciate that. So that was my interview most of the interview. Like I said, the rest of the interview, we were talking about direction, which it was in the eastern sky, 2:50 a.m. This is a actual photo of what she, her husband, and 2 children, teenagers, that she woke up her entire family to go outside and look at that. You don't get your entire family out of bed to go outside and see lens glares on your phone. People don't do that. So anyway, in order to add more credibility to what Tom saw in his video, I had to share that.
So that was very cool.
And I have to go. I have to go.
Do you?
Yeah. And I'm really enjoying
We're not
myself.
going to let you. You can't go. No. Not acceptable.
You don't live close enough so I can sleep in your garage.
Anytime, Jim. Anytime.
Yeah.
Okay, mate. If you got to go, you got to go.
Well, I'll stay connected. I'll just turn the camera. I'll be back.
Hey.
I'm having a good time. So.
Well, I know that Jim will be here in spirit, cheering on whatever yakking I'm doing. So. All right.
That's good. That's good.
So yeah, that was just today. Here's one on the crystal towers that they found on the moon. That's Richard Hoagland and Mike Barra. And they did the original. If you haven't seen Hoagland's original The Face of Mars, or the Cydonia, that he did back in the 80s, it's like a 3-hour presentation, gets into the geometry, tetrahedrons, the location of the face, the geometry of the structures around where the face is. I mean, it's just, it's a math geek's paradise, because that's what he did with it. And then when you look at it, you go, well, how in the hell if all these things are supposed to be natural, according to the authorities, how in the hell did all that happen? Because we don't find that precision, those specific geometric patterns in nature. They are there, but they are not structured like that. They're buried in other stuff. So let's see what they talk about, what they show us here on the ancient aliens about the moon. So far, I'm seeing a bunch of stuff that tells me that there's a whole bunch of stuff going on that nobody's talking about, and they need to. And it goes back to your point earlier, B, about disclosure. Why are these people holding on to all this information? Well, here's another data set that makes you scratch your head and ask questions.
Mars started looking at the moon in the 1990s, and where he started was with an old North American atlas that had a whole bunch of photographs and thumbnails of pictures that were taken by every mission, from Apollo, the lunar orbiter, to a surveyor. The first thing he noticed was that in the middle of the lunar disk, there was a crater named Euclid, which appeared to be a triangle. Now, craters cannot be triangular. That has to be sculpted. It has to be constructed. So he got a hint that maybe this is where he should start looking for interesting stuff on the moon, just like the interesting stuff he'd found on Mars. And what he found was that entire region had been photographed, just absolutely photographed to a great extent. There were hundreds of pictures to go through. Well, on one of them, he started looking at lunar orbiter images, on one of them called Lunar Orbiter 384M, M meaning medium resolution. He started looking at this and he said, the foreground's not too interesting, but let me look in the background. Now, some of this here is actually a film developer that got spilled on. It's not really anything. But as he looked at the horizon, he started to see things that didn't make a lot of sense to him, that didn't seem to actually fit. And the closer he got and the more he looked at these images, the more he realized that there was something jutting up out of the surface that absolutely should not be there. Now, this little X mark up here is actually called a RISO mark. It's to help align frames. But the object right below it, which is casting a shadow in the correct geometric direction for where the sunlight's coming from, is absolutely real, and it is absolutely on the lunar surface. And Hoagland gave it a nickname. He called it the shard. And really super high quality close-ups of it. And these were all made back in the days before Photoshop. This was all done with analog prints. Basically, take a negative and enlarge it and brighten it and play around with the contrast. You can see that it appears to have a geometric internal structure, like layers of see-through cells. Now, the question then becomes, what could it be? Well, that's even more dramatic when you look at another object kind of over the shoulder of the shard. You see an object that Hoagland later dubbed the tower, and it has the same sort of multi-layered geometric structure. It, like the shard, is aligned with the local vertical. In other words, it goes straight up from where it is over the horizon, and it appears to have support struts and things sort of feeding into it. And at the very top of the tower is another bright, geometric, multi-layered, cube-like structure made up of lots of little hexagons, lots of little things that should not be there. And this thing is over 7 miles high. So it's also been photographed on other images that were taken. This is a side view of the so-called tower from another Apollo frame, Apollo 10, Orbit 32 frame 4856. So realizing he was onto something, Hoagland said, you know, this is pretty crazy stuff. Somebody has to have seen this besides me. Somebody has to look for this stuff. So he started going through the catalog, and he noticed that a lot of the frames in the catalog were very dark, or in some cases, they were completely blacked out, like this one, AS10 32 4822. That means Apollo 10, Orbit 32, 4822 was the number of the photograph. So being a very healthy conspiracy theorist by the mid-1990s, knowing that NASA was not telling the truth about Mars and about the moon, he ordered the blacked out photograph. What he got was something absolutely extraordinary. This is the actual AS10 32 4822. What you see in the foreground is basically a cityscape as big as the city of Los Angeles, with a, again, constant repeating cross-hatching pattern. Then he started to order the same frame from different NASA archives, because at that time in the 90s, they were still photographs. There were still negatives. You could order a negative of any NASA frame from 8 or 9 different archives, in Hawaii and Maryland and St. Louis and Houston. And every time he did, he got a different version of 4822. On one of the versions of 4822, you see this object that looks like a giant paperclip. Now that sucker is probably going to be 600 feet tall as the Space Needle in Seattle, Washington. And it absolutely is artificial. Again, it's reflecting the sunlight in the proper way. It absolutely should not be there. There appears to be some sort of central post. What is it? Wire, radio transmitter? I don't know. But in the foreground, hanging in the space above the lunar surface in Sinus Meta E were other objects. This is one that he called the castle because it reminded him of the Disney castle. And if you look at it, it's incredible in terms of its structure and its internal geometry. Again, in one of the photos, you can clearly see a support wire that's holding it up, some sort of support structure that's holding it up. And there are 2 frames of 4822. They eventually found 9 different versions of 4822, AS10 32 4822. And the castle appeared in 2 of them, but in one of them, you notice it's narrower and it's turned. So what you're seeing is the motion of the spacecraft. What happened was, quite obviously, is somebody had a power winder on the Hasselblad camera, and they held it down and took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pictures, and NASA stacked them all under one frame number, even though they were 9 different pictures, and then blacked out the thumbnail in the official catalog. They were trying to hide something quite clearly. Here's close-ups of some of the details on it, on the castle itself. Now, other pictures from around the area were kind of...
So that's some tantalizing little information, eh?
Yes.
Absolutely brilliant, mate. Absolutely brilliant. I mean, I've known this stuff for a long time, you know. I mean, we were actually talking about this on the last show with Jim, and Jim says, you know, most of this stuff you were showing on Mars and stuff as well, you know, it's all been wiped out, you know, photoshopped, copied, pasted, boom. That you don't see what they don't want you to see, you know.
What do you think, Chastiy?
I kind of went somewhere else. I just couldn't imagine. He said knowing these things in the 90s. I just couldn't. I mean, I just started understanding these things not even 5 years ago. I couldn't. And I did go through a period where it was driving me crazy that other people didn't understand these things. So, you know, now I have a little bit more compassion and understanding that everybody's on their own journey. But it's just so I completely lost my train of thought.
You were coming at it from a different angle.
Hey, I've been down that road, Chastiy. I've been down that road. And you know what, Chastiy? Look, as I've mentioned with Jim many times before on other shows, is that back in those days, they used to brag from 150 miles up in a satellite, they can take a photograph and they can see what the headlines on the newspaper somebody's reading on a beach from 150 miles away. And this is back in the 70s, right?
No, that was in 1962 at Lau Air Force Base.
Okay, that's back in 1962.
And it
How much more?
Yeah, and it was a capsule that was ejected out of a satellite, and it was of Moscow, and it was 5 frames. First one, it's the entire city of Moscow, the Moscow River. You can barely make out Red Square. Next one down, boom, you can see Red Square and the Kremlin, but you can't make out people, barely make out cars. And the next one comes down, you can make out cars between, you know, whether it's a car or a truck or whatever. You can't tell if men or women. The fourth one, there's you can see a guy sitting on a park bench with a newspaper. You can tell he's reading newspaper, but that's it. And the final frame, you could read the 8-inch headlines in the Moscow Times or whatever it is. And this was not classified. It was in a classified location, but it was non-classified in 1962.
Right. Exactly. Good point, Jim. Good point. But yet these photographs they're showing us from NASA, from their catalog, are the most worst photographs of all. I mean, the clarity of them, crap. They don't want us to just see something. I mean, obviously they had good photography in those days. And I'm sure they wouldn't send the crap up there. They'll have the best of the best as the best.
I mean, the Hasselblads, if you go out and buy the same, you know, commercial model, I mean, non-commercial model, it would cost you $35,000 or $45,000 for that, just the basic frame. Lenses and everything else would be that much more. So, no, they had the best cameras made for the time frame, and but NASA by definition of who they are. They're a public entity. They're not a military or a government, or they're quasi-government. Well, they're entire government, but that's neither here nor there.
Why are all the astronauts Air Force guys or Navy guys? Why is that?
Well, you have to have a certain amount of training in high performance aircraft. At least that's what they figure. Now, I brought up Sally Ride, but unfortunately, that didn't end well. It had nothing to do with her. Before John Glenn could fly in the space shuttle, he had to be able to climb out of the space shuttle trainer, which was down at Houston, and with a rope ladder or inertia wheel, go down the 50 feet or 40 feet to the ground. And you have I think 4 tries, and he was on number 3. He said, give me a little bit of a few minutes to rest up, and he almost didn't make it on number 4, but he had a big cheering section, and so I guess the adrenaline pushed him up and over. So he did qualify. Else he would not have flown. They weren't going to fly him on the shuttle. But if you're in an emergency situation and you're bailing out, it isn't like you're being ordered to do something. You have so much adrenaline pumping through your system. I mean, you could all but fly. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay. Well, Chastiy, I believe you want to go and got things to do. You know,
just go to sleep, probably.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Well, listen, it's been an honor and a privilege having you here. And look, and please make it your second home. Feel free to come and join us anytime you want.
I'll come anytime. I really enjoyed myself. Thank you so much. It was an honor.
It was a delight meeting you, and look forward to seeing you again.
Yes, you too. I would love to be back. Thank you for sharing everything with me. I really appreciate it, gentlemen. And I would be honored to come back.
And hey, next time maybe you can bring and put something on the table that you want to kind of bring up and discuss.
You bet I will, and I won't come in my pajamas.
We've got no complaints.
Okay, cool. Well, then maybe I might. So, all right, gentlemen, y'all have a Merry Christmas.
Same to you, Jess.
Merry Christmas to you. Thank you for joining. What a lovely lady.
Oh, she was delightful.
Yeah. Between Heidi and her, they're really energy packed, aren't they?
Well, we had a little class on tonight that was great to look at. So, I mean, we're up in the show here, B.
2.5.
Yeah. I mean, hey, it's the people you have on, isn't it? You gotta have nice people. Get along.
B, I want to thank you for allowing me into your group of crazies. I mean, I just really thoroughly, I'm blessed to have stumbled upon you. I met the professor. And we were talking about frequencies. I could feel it through the computer screen.
Mm-hmm.
But there's people I walk by and I have an immediate dislike for. I mean, they haven't said anything. I haven't really looked at them, but there was a certain energy they had. I just don't like that. But there's also meeting someone like the professor. My feeling was like meeting an old friend for the first time. You don't have very many of those in your life, and I've been blessed with a number of them, and I'm still other than one asshole who lives in New Zealand now. I don't know what island. We were friends for 61 years, but that doesn't count. He is not my friend anymore. But other than that, life is. I don't even know where I'm going with that. So,
well, I think it's a good night. I think it's a good night, and you go and get yourself some good night's sleep, and we can all catch up in the new year. What do you reckon?
Absolutely, and
yeah, that's only it's only a week away. It's what is it? A week from Monday is January 1st.
Hey, do you guys want to do a show next Saturday? Are you busy?
I have you down for some
on the 6th. I think.
Yeah. Are we on with Heidi and her show on the 6th?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I've got the Midwest Night Watchers on Sunday the 7th.
They're good people. Good people.
Yeah.
Anyway, listen, I think we'll call it quits today. We've been we're heading into 2.5 hours. Hey, we're still up there. We're still up there doing the thing. Anyway,
well, it would have been shorter if we didn't have all those ladies interrupting our conversations.
Well,
ooh, hey, that's playing with fire. You know that. Hey, mate, Don't go where angels fear to tread, man.
Because my wife, she was not happy with me for being on the air all night. But one of the, I mean, it's not an advantage, but it works in this type of thing. She has no short-term memory, so tomorrow morning she won't remember that she was mad at me tonight.
So that gives you a ticket for the next one.
Yeah,
I don't know how long. Come on, let me at it.
Yeah. No, she's a real sweetie, and she loves what I do. She really does. And I don't know how I managed it, but Robert, one of these days soon you'll be able to meet her. You'll have to come down and give us a visit.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
I'll have to think about getting it.
Once this winter calms down a little bit and it's only like 80 or 90 degrees in Tucson, I'm there.
Okay, all right. It sounds good to me. Terry, you have a very Merry Christmas.
And same to you, Jim. And say g'day to Rosemary for me and wish her all the best.
I will.
And Robert,
Merry
Christmas to you there, buddy.
And that sweet
gentlemen, thank you for being a nice little tribe of terrorists that just coming out and butchering whatever it is we talk about. It's awesome.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll probably give you a call during the week anyhow, mate. Yeah, as usual, which I'll give out. I'll probably give you a call too, Jim. I'll catch up with you.
Yeah. And Robert, you tell that foreigner that that I wish her a very Merry Christmas and a very wonderful New Year.
I will do that. Thank you very much.
All right,
gentlemen. Have a good one. Be safe and just enjoy it. Don't stress it. Just enjoy it.
I will.
And thank you everybody for joining us today. And listen, remember, be nice, be kind, and aspire to inspire one another. And as our good friend, Mr. Doc Skinner would say, let's lift each other up so we can all rise together. What a saying that is. Anyway, thank you very much, everybody. Catch you all soon. Bye-bye now.
Adios. Take care.